Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere and welcome to The Niche Cast, coming at you on the 9th of April in the year of 2024. Big things happening for Aotearoa sport. We hope you're doing well. We are here to chat and break down some Aotearoa sporting matters. On the agenda today, we've got a pretty impressive, but not all that different to their other wins this season. Win for the Warriors over the Rabbitohs to propel them into some turmoil. And I'd also say your favourite Australian NRL team gets a bigger crowd when they play the Warriors in Australia. Like, we've seen it a few times now, and you know that's the case because, as we've talked about with the Mount Smart dynamic a few times this season, the Warriors fans will pipe up, and they will pipe up at an Australian stadium and make their presence known. So that was pretty cool. So we'll break down the Warriors and the Rabbitohs. We'll be going deep into some Kiwi-NRL matters as well, the winning teams there. Unfortunately, the Wellington Phoenix had a loss against the Central Coast Mariners. So that was the top of the table battle. And now the Mariners, they're top of the league. So reflecting on some previous discussions, we did celebrate top of the league, Black Caps, top of the league, Wellington Phoenix. They're no longer the top of the league. So no team is top of the league at the moment as we speak. So shout out to Aotearoa there. But we're doing all right. How about that? Phoenix is second. Warriors are tracking along nicely. So the Phoenix had a loss. Football Ferns are playing tonight as well against Thailand after a big win in the first game. So shout out to them. We'll chat about them as well. White Ferns did what the White Ferns love to do. They won the third and final ODI, so shout out to them. Nathan Smith is in action in the county championship. And maybe we'll get around some NBL kōrero as well. We got three teams who are undefeated to start the season. Wellington Saints, Otago Nuggets, Franklin Bulls, Auckland Tuatara. So we got some fun stuff happening there. That is the menu for today. We're from the niche-cache.com, the niche-cache.com, and we've got some big yarns, many of the big things we're talking about at the moment. Just quickly, because we did talk about the Black Caps T20 squad on the Subscriber podcast last week. I wrote about it over the weekend. Busy time, so I don't expect you to be thinking a whole lot about the Black Caps right now. But was there anything that did stick with you about this Black Caps T20 squad? That will be playing in Pakistan in less than 10 days, I think, 9 days.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked over it a lot in the Subscriber podcast after that happened. So that's kind of where all the ideas came out and where they stayed. The thing that stuck with me the most from that was just the funny dynamic about how the Black Caps supposedly sending a B team, but also this B team might still have half of their T20 World Cup squad in it. Like this, it's still a pretty strong team. And the half that aren't are mostly guys who are in contention for the last few places in that squad who, not all of them are going to get there, but there's a lot of guys that are still in with a chance. And it's against Pakistan where like the reason, not the only reason, but the main reason, I suppose, why the Black Caps don't have all their guys is because they're playing IPL and we're going to play Pakistan, who are prohibited from playing in IPL. So they'll have their full strength team. They'll have all the dudes available because they're not allowed to play in the IPL. Our guys are allowed to play in the IPL, but they mostly sit on the bench, except for a couple of them when the IPL happens. But they do get paid for that. So got to do what you got to do. But I still expect that to be a very competitive series. I think it's a very good, exciting T20 squad that the Black Caps have picked, but I do like that dynamic of just like the supposedly understrength team getting to play, which maybe isn't as understrength as it seems, playing against the team that doesn't get IPL players taken away, so they're going to be at full strength.
And it is worth highlighting Nathan Smith, he's playing county championship cricket, and if I'm a development manager for New Zealand cricket, I might be saying it's better for Nathan Smith as a Black Caps prospect to be playing county championship cricket than touring Pakistan. Like, I'd say right now for Nathan Smith, who is one of the best, if not the best player below the Black Caps, yet to play for the Black Caps in any format. Like he's basically the best bowler in Plunkett Shield. His batting's really good. His fielding's pretty damn impressive as well. Maybe just roll through county championship cricket. Maybe you can dominate that, get some confidence. Because what do these dudes do when they go to county cricket? Rachin Ravindra, big runs. Will Young, big runs. Daryl Mitchell, fantastic. Glenn Phillips, bowling extraordinaire for Gloucestershire. You know, the Kiwi lads love to go over to county championship cricket and show them what's up. And Nathan Smith was bang on to start the season. A little bit of county championship coming early here. Because Nathan Smith, he bowled the most overs for Worcestershire and Worcestershire. And he was the most economical bowler as well. Took a couple wickets, hit a 4. That's all he did with the bat, but he did hit a nice 4. And he executed a run out, and he banged himself in the head with the ball as well while doing a fake throw. So it was a big Nathan Smith weekend. So shout out to him. Shout out to the Black Caps T20 cricket squad as well. What else? The newsletter yesterday was a lovely newsletter. Lots of Warriors that we will touch on in a jiffy. And basically at the moment, newsletter, Substack, thenichecase.substack.com, every Monday, lots of Warriors, probably lots of domestic football as well. So that's a fairly consistent Monday offering, but also lots of other stuff. Kiwi-NRL, White Ferns, Championship, County Championship cricket, the football Ferns, like everything we're discussing now was already sent out via our newsletter. That's how we roll. We get the words written on a Monday. We come in for a podcast chat on a Tuesday. So sign up to that, thenichecase.substack.com. And we're also on Patreon, patreon.com/our niche case. We do our subscriber podcast on Thursdays. That goes out to the generous folks on Patreon, and with paid Substack subscriptions, Monday and Friday newsletter is completely free. Let's do mindfulness. What do you got?
Yeah, let me whip that up. What have I got here? I have a line from the impeccable wit of Mr. Oscar Wilde, where he said, the first word is nowadays. So keep in mind when he says nowadays, he means like 100 years ago, probably more than that, because I think he died like 100 years ago. But that's a mindfulness, a sub-mindfulness in and of itself, because it tells you that 100 years ago, people complained about the same stuff. 100 years later, people still complaining about those things. 100 years into the future, they'll be complaining about them again. Human nature is just kind of the same, no matter where you happen to be in the timelines. But Oscar Wilde said, nowadays, people know the price of everything and the value of nothing.
Big up to that mindfulness. I'd like to add to your thing about the timeline, but it's right now as well. Like the problems in New Zealand are the same problems happening in any number of countries. The problems that are happening in any number of countries are similar problems to what's happening in New Zealand. The problems that are happening in your favorite sport are the same problems that are happening in someone else's favorite sport. Like, case in point, VAR reviews. Like, football folks are complaining about it, and then you got the whole bunker storyline.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's the same thing, so just chill out. Like, every sport's dealing with this, and we're all just trying to do our best. How about that? We're all just trying to do our best and tie it into value somehow. Not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Worry
That's
less about prices and more about value.
The value of life is just doing your best, having a crack.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Music. We got a bit of music. Shout out to music. And shout out to the sounds of Aotearoa, because Aotearoa does produce fantastic music. One of the legends is David Dallas. And he has a new album, Vita, which is pretty damn impressive. I think, this is some very, I don't know, I think. Everything suggested it, because it's produced by 41, who was the original half of Frontline when David Dallas was Consai. So when they burst onto the scene, um, and they was kind of did a couple songs with PNC, P Money, Scribe, I think as well. So they've come back together, you could say. Maybe they were doing some projects before that I wasn't listening to, but 41 produced this. What do we got? 8 songs, I think. He produced it, and it's pretty cool. Just real slick, good, solid hip hop. So shout out to David Dallas. And there's a new track from The Alchemist and Oh No. They team up. Now they're coming together of forces, producers, rappers, and they are Gangrene. And they had the Oxnard Water Torture. Cool song, and they've got a new project coming up. So anything Alchemist is always a banger, and especially if you check the Be Real TV, Alchemist and Oh No popped onto that as well. And they, Alchemist is a legend, so he's got plenty of cool yarns, especially with Be Real, who's also a legend. He's got great yarns. Your musical selection?
Well, what have we got here? It's early new month, so there's an album's yarn up, which I'll select a couple of my favorites from that. Although I do want to give a cosign on David Dallas first, just because as much as anything, he also has a song in there, which is one of the top songs on that thing, named after Anthony Bourdain. So I respected that as well. That was pretty cool. What have I got? The new Waxahachie album is outrageously good, like as good as I was hoping it to be, and then a little bit more so. Called Tiger's Blood, and it's one of them things. This is sort of in that kind of like I don't know, they call it Americana or just sort of like a country flavored rock kind of genres. You can tell it's a good album when, like, because the first song I heard from it was the first single called Right Back to It, which he's got MJ Lenderman on, who's a bit of an up and coming guitar slinger fella. And he's got a couple things. He did a live album at the start of the year, which is fantastic. And his last sort of studio album was an absolute banger too. And he actually features, particularly his guitar playing, quite a lot throughout this album. It's just such a good combination. So I guess that's another one of those collaborative things in this theme of music stuff. But their first song called Right Back to It, I heard that at the start of the year when that came out, and I'm like, this is, I guess, my new favorite song, and was for the next week or two. And then I listened to the actual album, and it's like, well, nothing's going to be better than that first single. And then actually, no, I'm like, every time this is the thing, like, it's a great project when every time you listen to it, there's a different song that stands out. And this has been the case with this Waxahachie album. So I love that. If someone does enjoy that as well, then I would also recommend the new Hooray for the Riff Raff album, which I listened to waiting for the Waxahachie one to come out, and then found actually this is almost as good. Like this is that one is excellent too. What else? Meat Body's got a new album. If you like your stomping garage rock, then that one's with a dose of just psychedelic weirdness, which is pretty much exactly what I like in loud guitar music. Well, Meat Body's got a new album, so there you go. Flora Ocean Bloom, something along those lines. I might have missed a word. It's one of those things that sounds like they've just picked words out of the dictionary, but it's, great tunes. And there was one other one I was gonna suggest, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, David Nance and Mode Sound, which is just like him. It sounds like him and a bunch of his mates just like locked away in the studio in the middle of the night, just playing over and over and over till they hit a groove they like, and then just improvising songs around it. I'm guessing it's not quite that loose, but the fact that it feels that loose is the genius about that album. So it's David Nance and Mode Sound. Side Eyed Sam was the first song that had. There's a second one in there, and when I heard that, I'm like, oh, this is slick. I love this. And yeah, that's all of those albums that I just mentioned there. They are in our albums roundup for last month. So there you go. Good tunes.
In our Monday and Friday newsletter, every newsletter, we also share a bit of music each. So I shared the Gangrene, Alchemist, and Oh No, the Oxnard Water Torture video. You shared Earth Tongue. Who are Earth Tongue?
Yeah, that's right. It was their South by Southwest set. Earth Tongue is a band from, I guess, from Wellington. There's sort of a spin-off band of Mermaidens, sort of relatively well known at this point. Kiwi kind of shoegazy, maybe slightly psychedelic band. Earth Tongue is a little closer to Meat Bodies. This is the spin-off from the main guitarist and her partner. And he's a drummer. So it's just guitar and drum, and they just play loud, weird kind of buzzy kind of I don't know exactly. Genres get weird when you try to start describing stuff, but it's definitely a lot like those kind of in fact, I think the new album, which is coming out soon, is going to be on the same label as OC's put out their stuff. So if you know who OC's are, slash the OCs, slash the OCs, slash OCS, they change their band name every couple years. But John Dwyer's crew, if anyone knows who that dude is and them, then you know that these guys putting out a psychedelic garage rock kind of record on that record label is a fairly big deal and a good sign that they're keeping some esteemed company there. So Earth Tongue, great band, love them. New album coming out soon.
I think that style of music is New Zealand's best style of music right now. I don't like going back to the Kansai kind of PNC, Scribe, P Money era, and then you get into like homebrew and that type of stuff. Like I think that was when New Zealand hip hop was really leading the way. Before that, I think it was a bit more rock and roll. Like I don't want to chuck out any random bands and just sound like an absolute idiot, but
Dave Dobbin,
the Feelers, She Had, like those type of, there were again, I don't want to offend anyone if I'm doing like anti-rock and roll hipster type of stuff here, but I did feel like that was a big era for New Zealand rock and roll. And obviously you can go back further. What's the Time, Mr. Wolf? That's the south of the Bombay Boys. I think the roots reggae stuff has always been there. The dub's always been there. But right now I think it's that psychedelic. Because I mean, I don't know what genre Troy Kingi is. Delaney Davidson, like these folks are elite top tier. Then you've got the younger folks. There's lots of like indie rock and roll from New Zealand rock right now, but it's psychedelic stuff. I think that's the leading genre, the leading style of music from the land of Aotearoa at the start of 2024.
Yeah, I do like. I do tend to like the art that I absorb to just have a bit of weirdness about it, like something that's different or unique or just like strange. And I do think there's like, genres are hard to pin down and say like all these people will apply to the same sounds, because obviously they don't. Like it can change from song to song and it's etc etc. But there's a lot of options and for good Kiwi weirdness these days, and there has been in the past as well. I think that's a important thing. Is like, I think people talked about that a lot with like 80s, early 90s, like Flying Nun stuff, where it sounds like sort of poppy guitar music, but there's something a little bit unhinged about it at the same time. And I think a lot of Americans ascribe that to the fact of it coming from New Zealand, and not just from New Zealand, but from Dunedin. So like the furthest part away in the furthest country away, and the isolation or whatever that might lead to. I don't know if that stuff even applies anymore in an internet age, but there's a legacy of weirdness there, and it's being upheld. So I'm feeling patriotic right about now.
That's what we do. We're here to celebrate Aotearoa every day, because we're talking basically every day about Aotearoa and Aotearoa sports. So shout out, and obviously shout out to Aotearoa music. Shout out to the Aotearoa Warriors for their win over the Rabbitohs. And there's a lot of stuff, good stuff, right? I'll touch on a few good things. And everyone, you can watch the Warriors and all the good things. You're like, yeah, the Warriors doing this. Wade Egan from dummy half. That's the one top of mind. That's one everyone's kind of talking about. But everything else, whether it's Wade Egan being better than Damien Cook, maybe it's Rocco Berry putting in 2 really good shifts against Bradman Best and Jack Whiten. Like that seems pretty impressive. Maybe it's being second in kick return meters in the NRL. Maybe it's Roger Tuivasa-Sheck playing wing, centre and fullback at an extraordinary high level. Like, he's played 3 different positions for 3 consecutive wins at an 8 out of 10 level or higher. That is so cool. Because I think what's happened is that Tuivasa-Sheck, he's saying, I don't care. I'm here to play footy for the Warriors, and you can see how these players feel about playing for the Warriors, because Jacob Laban made his debut. He wants to play for the Warriors. Folks want to play for the Warriors, whether it's a player on debut, whether it's RTS, the big stepper, coming back from rugby union. He wants to play for the Warriors. Tuivasa-Sheck, we've known about Tuivasa-Sheck for maybe at least 10 years now. Nothing about Tuivasa-Sheck suggests that he is going to be fussy. Yeah, he's got high standards. Yeah, he wants to win. But Tuivasa-Sheck just wants to play. He wants to be out there with the boys. He is humble. And I don't think he cares what position he plays. So, folks from the outside, they're stressing, he needs to play fullback. He needs to get more touches. He needs to play centre. You can't be wasted on the wing. Well, I actually think the wing's his best position. Because he doesn't have to pass the ball, but he can if he wants. He just runs. And every winger needs X factor. Every winger needs to be able to throw him. Yeah, it's not the fullback type of passing, but your mate Zach Lomax fired a massive offload, and he is a good winger because he's got fantastic skills. He's a natural baller. That's what Tuivasa-Sheck is. And all you do, not all you do, again, you need to be able to fire massive offloads. You need to be a finisher. You need to be, know when to jam, because the Rabbitohs try came with Tuivasa-Sheck jamming in, maybe not so experienced in that position right now. Wingers need to be extremely dynamic in natural footy plays. And Tuivasa-Sheck's exactly that. But if you kick to him...
He is a former Winger of the Year as well. He's won the Dally-M Winger of the Year. In the same season, he won a premiership with the Roosters as a winger. So I think that sort of element of his game has been forgotten. I don't know. It's in that whole conversation about what position he plays in. It's he's literally won Dally-M position player of the year in 2 different positions. You probably win it in centre this year,
So then...
complete the set.
And now he's playing 8 out of 10 in 3 different positions for the Warriors. This dude's crazy. As we've said, he's got the best footwork ever in either rugby code. But he's so much more than that. He's just a natural footy player, which is the ultimate compliment, even though it sounds pretty damn basic when you say it. But this... I'm just going to roll through some positive things, then I'll get to the punchline. I did debate in my head prior to the show how to lay this out, but now we're in the flow, we'll just keep going. Every good team has an excess. And another word I was thinking about is indulgent. So a good example, in my opinion, is the Black Caps team that won the World Test Championship. So you got Southey, you got Bolt, you got Wagner, you got Kane, you got Latutu Taylor, BJ Watling, Tommy Latham. But then you get Devon Conway in red hot form. Then you get Kyle Jamieson bursting onto the scene. That is the excess. That's the indulgence. Golden State Warriors, they get a bit indulgent. They bring in Kevin Durant. So now you got Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant. I think a good example in rugby league is the Panthers. They've been able to sustain it, but those early years, it's the Panthers now with Stephen Crichton, with Viliami Kikau. There is an excess, there is an indulgence that the best teams have. Australian cricket, and I pondered this summer. They're the best cricket team in the world, and when we were playing against them this summer, I was yeah, we saw off the new ball. Now it's Nathan Lyon. Now Pat Cummins is coming back for another spell to bowl exactly the same as he did in the first spell. Like, that is the indulgence. It's just like, we've got an extra player. We've always got a better player. Football, the Galacticos, Real Madrid, you had Figo, Zidane, Beckham, all those dudes. You can go Man City in the modern era. The Warriors have that with Tuivasa-Sheck. Because worst case scenario, Tuivasa-Sheck plugs the hole, you know? How is that anything but amazing? Oh, we need a winger. Tuivasa-Sheck's going to play 8 out of 10 at least. Oh, we're down a fullback. Tuivasa-Sheck slots straight in. 250 meters. Oh, he's going to play left center, because I think that's where he should play when it's like super full strength, but nothing's full strength when you're playing in the NRL, so you're always down players. Okay, yeah, we're going to put in Tuivasa-Sheck. That is indulgent. No Warriors fan should be stressing about Tuivasa-Sheck being wasted on the wing, or not playing fullback, or he doesn't get enough touches at centre. So I don't really think Tuivasa-Sheck's all that fast. He seems like an absolutely lovely bloke. But also, he's the dude who fills the spot. And he's one of the best rugby league and union, although his first 15 career was pretty legendary. He's just a fantastic rugby league and union player. And that indulgence is a sneaky thing, because all the best teams have it. And the Warriors have it in their depth as well, because that's another theme of the week. But it's there the most in Tuivasa-Sheck, because, but also, what has Adam Pompey done in his 2 games this year? Well, he's got 2 wins, and he's averaging 136 meters, which is the first time in his career he is averaging over 109 meters. And he's tackling at 96.9%, 97%, and it's his first season tackling over 90%. So Adam Pompey's come in for 2 games, and he is playing the best footy of his career. That's indulgent. Tamati Martin. This was an amazing Tamati Martin game, and I think the Warriors are better with Tamati Martin, just straight up. Whether it's Chanel Harris-Tavita, whether it's Luke Metcalf, like Tamati Martin just played it safe in the first kind of half. He had that massive kick chase. That's what he does. He pops up everywhere in defense, led the kick chase for one deep kick. And then in the second half, when the Warriors grind has absolutely just finished the Rabbitohs gas tank, Tamati Martin just bang, 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 popping up all over the show, little goose step, little steps here. He doesn't have the Tuivasa-Sheck footwork, like the big step, but he just kind of shuffles his feet towards space. And he just ran riot in the last kind of 10 to 15 minutes. He can kick, he can pass, he's a good defender. Man, he's real good. And again, it's a bit indulgent, because he was playing New South Wales Cup to start the season. You know what else is indulgent? 18-year-old Sio Kelly making his New South Wales Cup debut. Kalis Fatialofa, 19 years old. He just made his New South Wales Cup debut. Like, there's a lot of these dudes. The Warriors haven't even seen Leka Halasima in New South Wales Cup this year yet. Dimitri Sifakula is still out injured. 2 forwards are out injured. Who are the best young forwards in the system then? Well, take your pick. Zion Maiu, Tanner Smith, Eddie Adamia. Like, they're all playing New South Wales Cup. You want a veteran? Kailani Going. You need a hooker? Paul Roach is just grinding out New South Wales Cup footy. Need a winger? Well, Ali Leotawa was 18th man against the Rabbitohs, but maybe the depth is really tested. Well, they'll probably just go Ed Cossey. And maybe you can give Setu Tu a debut. I think Setu Tu is pretty handy. Like, there is a level of indulgence in the Warriors roster. And I'm curious what you think of that especially when you kind of become aware that a lot of good teams in the history of sport have that indulgent level. Wellington, women, kept winning the Super Smash. It was like, well, if Amelia Kerr and Sophie Devine don't score runs, Georgia Plymouth might score some runs, Leah Kasparek might score some runs, Tamsin Newton at that stage, Jess McFadden, Becca Burns, like, okay, Sophie Devine, Amelia Kerr might not take wickets, then it's Zara Jetley, then it's Lee Kasparek, then it's Nicole Beard, now it's Kate Chandler, Natasha Kodaya as youngsters. Like those really elite teams have an indulgence of talent. I think the Warriors have got it. The Dragons probably don't have it right now. What do you reckon about that?
Yeah, the Dragons have the opposite of that, where there's like one guy who kind of pulls all the strings, and he has a couple of good players he can rely on sometimes. Like you put a kick up to Zach Lomax, you'll probably get a challenge in. If you ask Zach Lomax to flick an inside ball behind his back, sometimes it'll work brilliantly and it'll be one of the best tries you've ever seen. Other times it'll end up in the crowd. So, yeah, that's the opposite of what you're saying. And I was trying to think how this might apply to the Wellington Phoenix blokes at the moment. And I think their indulgence is the ability to just actually not dissimilar at all to what you're saying about the Warriors there, is their ability to just be like, we want to play a back three this week. Isaac Hughes, you're in. Isaac Hughes is out. Lucas Kelly healed, you're in, and Sam Sutton's playing wing back kind of thing. Or Tim Payne's not playing for a top of the table clash against Central Coast Mariners away, which could decide whether we finish first or not. And we'll come back to that idea later on because the title race is certainly not over. But Matt Sheridan, you've never made a start in the A-League before, but you're starting this one. You're playing an hour against our number one sort of title rivals right now. Like just the ability to, or Oscar Van Hatten coming off the bench and setting up the goal. Like just the ability to lean upon and actually get outcome, like a response, a tangible, what do you call it? Like, I guess just success, being able to rely upon unproven academy players. That's the excess of the Wellington Phoenix right now. And the Warriors have that. And they also have that other side of the coin, which is they were a top four team that just added Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Like, they were already a top four team. That doesn't mean they're going to be a top four team coming in again. Even with Tuivasa-Sheck, it doesn't necessarily mean that because the NRL is supremely competitive. But that's not a bad position to be in when you can add that level of talent, but also I think in a way where, yeah, if there was something that was underrated about them getting Tuivasa-Sheck back, it's the versatility that he's shown through this first like month or so of the season. I think maybe people thought it was a bit of a, how do we make this fit because he's a fullback and Chance Nickel-Klokstad is fullback and he came back and played really well against the Rabbitohs and Warriors are a better team when he plays in general. So he needs to be there, but then how do you fit RTS in? Well, I think that was an underrated aspect that people maybe didn't realize the extent to which a natural baller can just play anywhere. Like you could probably put Tuivasa-Sheck in the halves if you wanted, if it came to that. They're not going to because they've got better halves options, but he'd probably do a job there as well. He might even do a job in the forward pack if it came to that. I don't know quite if he'd want. I don't know what kind of circumstances would lead to that, but the fact is he's been excellent in every other position he's played so far. So you can fit him in regardless. It's not really an issue. And that is pure excess because that's adding on top of what was already a solid. They're not trying to build a team around Tuivasa-Sheck. They've built the team and they're adding him on top of it.
I think the quality of the Warriors is most evident in the players around Tuivasa-Sheck in the sense that Adam Pompey has now played 2 games at centre with Tuivasa-Sheck playing at fullback and on the wing. And as I said, Adam Pompey's putting up career best stats in those 2 games. Chance Nickel-Klokstad comes in at fullback, 24 runs for 263 metres. That's 263 metres averaging over 10 metres per run. Like that's freaky. So the players who are filling spots or maybe forcing Tuivasa-Sheck into other positions, they're playing really well. So it's not like they're mediocre and Tuivasa-Sheck is being pushed into other positions. Like, they've come in and they've contributed at a very high level to a winning team. But all those things are happening, right? All those things for the Warriors are happening. Fantastic stuff. But the Warriors of 2024, I think, are one of the best wrestling teams. And that, when you factor in the wrestling and the control of the contact and the control of the collision, well, that's how you win the set-for-set grind. Yep, you need to have a good kicker. You need to have two good kickers, Sean Johnson, Te Maire Martin, but Sean Johnson was the bloke. And again, now we're dealing in the Fox Sports commentators realizing what the Warriors are doing, because every kick landed on Isaac Tupo-Thompson. And I mean, shout out Shans Nickel-Krokstad for his return. He did get sidestepped by Isaac Tupo-Thompson. Respectfully to Isaac Tupo-Thompson, it was a tough outing for him, being lined up against Tuivasa-Sheck. Kicks were landing on his head every set, and he was just getting... He wasn't getting smoked. He wasn't getting dominated. It was more like he was getting rolled up. He was just getting rolled up on the 10-meter line. Who's taking your next run? Because it's probably not going to be Latrell Mitchell. As we've discussed all season long, and we highlighted this last year as well, the Warriors they're good defensively, but I think their identity more now is the set-for-set grind team, which does involve good defense, and good defense does involve good wrestle. So shout out to Kai Kara-France, who has taken over as the coach of the Warriors wrestling and grappling, because they do all the little wrestling details really well. That's how you win the wrestle. Like, whether it's getting them on their back, whether it's just like pinning them down any way you can, whether it's getting bodies on top of the player. We've talked about this before as well. When you make the contact, you got to keep the contact. So you can't hit them and they bounce off, even if it's just like a few centimeters, because then they can wiggle out of the tackle and get up and play the ball. But if you hit the contact, you keep the contact, and then you can kind of lay on top of them for as long as you're allowed. And that, to me, is the Warriors' identity. That's just what they do really well. And that is how that is one way, obviously, that you can win NRL games. But again, I don't think it's surprising how the Warriors won this game. They tore them apart as the game went on, as the fatigue was building. How did they tear them apart? Around the ruck, because blokes are buggered. So they can't make the right decisions. They can't make the right effort to get around Wade Egan, get a couple of bodies there. And every time Wade Egan burst through, Warriors were in support. And it's again, the Warriors are second for average kick return meters in the NRL, behind the Panthers. So anytime you're kicking to them, they're starting on the front foot. And this is, to me, the identity of the Warriors, and all the attacking flair, all the attacking funk stems from that identity. Like, I don't think this Warriors team, their identity is free-flowing attack. And I'd go further. I think they are better in attacking in the midfield as opposed to on the opposition try line. And they can score tries on the opposition try line. Te Maire Martin bounced around for a try. They hit Rocket Berry with the short ball. Like, they do have those plays. But the Warriors also, there's a lot of sets where they, like, nothing really happens and they get tackled on the fifth tackle and they turn the ball over. And I kind of got to fight my natural instincts of being like, oh, we didn't take this opportunity down their end of the field, because that's how you usually think with rugby league. Like, we're on the try line, we need to get points because we don't know when we're coming back here. But there's like the Warriors, they just chill. They turn the ball over, and what do? They win those tackles. And like Wade Egan's tries, they were happening around halfway. So I think Like, the Warriors aren't too fast if they don't score on your try line, because they're probably going to turn the ball over, get some good kick return meters. They got you on the back foot. Now they can start to pull some strings. Around halfway, 40 meters out, 30 meters out. A lot of their attacking shape where they score points happens 20 meters out from the try line. Let alone the line breaks that are happening further upfield as well. And I think that's part of the identity. They're not all razzle-dazzle just scoring points, racking up points when they're on the try line. No, they'll just go for the grind, and they'll take their opportunities when they present themselves, because if you're slipping around the ruck, they're going to come bursting through. And if you're not slipping around the ruck, but you're slipping in the midfield, in the middle of your defensive line, well, they're going to use their shape to poke through that hole. And if you're coming in field to help on that, well, then you're getting the ball to Tuivasa-Sheck. You're getting the ball to Rocco Berry. You're getting the space out wide. It's just good football, really. Good rugby league football, I should say.
Yeah, there was a lot of good Wade Egan stuff in that game, and there was like, you might have to help me out there with my memory here, but I'm trying to remember a specific try where I don't think he ran I don't think he made the line break. I think it was a little like he faked it and then threw a little pop pass to someone else. And then I think it was a Sean Johnson try, but what stood out is just like they'd got themselves into the situation through all the things he's saying there, and then was so ruthless with that situation in a way where like it's not just the dummy half scoots through and takes 20 meters or whatever. It's the dummy half finds another guy who then runs through one-on-one with the fullback, but he's not actually one-on-one. He's 3-on-1 because he's got an option to pass to his left and he's got an option to pass to his right because there's support runners everywhere because they've spotted the situation and they're just swarming and dudes are just all over it. I don't know if that was a specific thing that I'm trying to remember. I might be conflating a couple tries.
One of them was a set play where Wade Egan bounces out of dummy half, and he's got, I think it's Nickel Clockstar and Tohu Harris.
Sounds right.
He can. So last week there was the shape where they passed. I think it went left to Sean Johnson, and then Tohu Harris was running it. He was inside Sean Johnson, so Sean Johnson bounces. He's on the left of the ruck. He gets the ball, bounces off his left, as if he's going to play short to Tohu Harris on his inside, but Tuivasa-Sheck is a second man out the back, coming back into the ruck. Similar play. But we've seen it before last season. They have that shape with Nickel Clockstar especially. But, I mean, who did they play last week? I think it was the Knights. Wade Egan gets out of dummy half, and he's got Tuivasa-Sheck right there with him. So as we said last week, well, you got to suss out one of those two, and if you give Egan the space, he's going to take it. So that happened last week. This week, he bounces out a dummy half, and he's literally got two passes there right with him. He can play short to Nickel Clockstar, who has kind of come out of obscurity and he's lurking out the back, but he just pops up there, so you don't necessarily know he's there the whole time. And you've got Tohu Harris looking like he's going to take one of his underrated hit-ups. So they slide off to Tohu Harris, bang, they hit Nickel Clockstar straight up the guts. So even in the Egan stuff, you've got moments where he just bursts out a dummy half, and he is averaging a career high 63 meters per game. And he's every season he's gone up. So he started with 15 meters per game, 18 meters per game, 29 meters per game, 38 meters per game, 49 meters per game, 51 meters per game, 63 meters per game. And unfortunately for Wade Egan, he missed his first tackles of the season. He missed two tackles against the Rabbitohs, and now he's got 98 tackles made, 2 missed tackles at 98%, which is also a career high. Lots of Warriors have career highs. So what have I done over the last 2 years as well? Wade Egan passing mixtape. So if he's going to run out of dummy half, there's support players there to make the most of that. He can do pretty complex shapes for NRL standards, just involving players around the ruck. and he can also throw no-look passes, spiral passes, both directions. He's a pretty good dummy half, really. Let's just quickly roll through the top 8 teams, and then we'll keep it moving to some other sports. Dolphins are first. What I love about the Dolphins is Jeremy Marshall-King. Remember, the Kiwis defeated Australia last year without Jeremy Marshall-King or Brandon Smith, and Jeremy Marshall-King's just doing his thing for the Dolphins. They have a bye, but they're top of the league, so shout out to them. Well, all these teams are on 8 points or 6 points. Cowboys, all about Griffin Neame at the moment. His form, I think, reflects the Cowboys' form. He wasn't so good against the Broncos. The Cowboys weren't so good against the Broncos. But if the Cowboys are rolling, Griffin Neame's coming off the bench and he's adding big impact. The Storm, I love Will Warbrick. You've also got Jerome Hughes. Jacob Laban made his debut for the Warriors. He's from Wellington. What do we know about Wellington? Jerome Hughes, Nelson Asafa-Solomona, Danny Levi, Jordan Rapana, Joseph Tapine. They're all from Wellington. Rocco Berry went to school in Wellington. I think he's from Greytown. And also the best young female rugby league player in NRLW, Alexis Tawaniai. She's a Wainoia Mata Jr. from Wellington as well. Jerome Hughes, fantastic. The Sharks, not a whole lot happening there. Other than reminding folks, I think Ronaldo Mulitalo is a perfect example of these wingers, as is Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. They're just skillful, fast, strong. Jordan Rapana leads the way there as well. Good game from Danny Levi for the Raiders, who are in 5th. But also Simi Sasangi got some game time. He left the Knights to go to the Raiders. He's doing some things, played a bit of centre, bit of edge forward on different sides of the field for the Raiders. Warriors, and then you've got Sea Eagles, who I love To'ofofoa Sipley coming off the bench. Former Warriors junior, and he has just found a nice little rhythm with the Sea Eagles in the last 2 seasons. He is yet to miss a tackle this season. 37 tackles, 100%. So shout out to him. And then we've got the Panthers. Fisher Harris made a return. So you've got Moses Leota and Fisher Harris back in the mix there. Haven't seen Scott Sorensen much this season, but the Panthers are still pretty damn good. Tough result for the Phoenix. Losing to the Mariners. Is this the word I've got here is humbled. A little bit of a getting humbled a wee bit. And as I wrote that down, I thought like this is the actual humbled, because like sometimes people, they win awards and they're like, I'm feeling so humbled. I'm humbled by this award. Well,
I'm so humbled to be told that I'm the best in the world.
Yeah, you mean this award like made you feel worse? I don't know. But this was a genuine humbled, because the Wellington Phoenix, they were humbled by their top of the table rivals, the Central Coast Mariners. Is it concerning, or is it just a bit of a good humble experience where you take the L, but you know there's plenty to work on, learn a few things about how the Mariners play, how the Phoenix play, good and bad as well. Probably a decent loss to have at this stage of the season. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Like, as far as their progress goes, not so much as far as the top of the table stuff goes, because if they'd won this game, they'd have been 6 points clear, I suppose, with 3 games to go, almost certain towards getting the Premier's plate. If they'd drawn, they'd have stayed 3 points ahead, all within their own control. Still some tricky games coming up. I think they've got their remaining fixtures are more difficult than what Central Coast have got to come. Because they've lost, they're now equal on points in Central Coast. They're ahead because they've got more wins. They also have better goal difference, but they have more wins, which is the first tiebreaker. And that's actually worse for the Phoenix, because you could make up, I think it's like a 4-goal difference margin. You could make that up by matching the results of Central Coast. If they win 1-0 and you win 3-0, and then they win 1-0 and then you win 3-0, sort of thing. You can overcome that, but you can't overcome wins because you can only get one at a time, right? So the only way they can finish ahead, tied with points, the only way they can finish tied with Central Coast but ahead on the table is if Central Coast draw all 3 of their games and the Phoenix win 1, lose 2. which even then would have to come down to goal difference. And I don't think that was, if you lose 2 of your 3 games, you'd probably have to win that one game like 6-0 or something. I don't know. But that's not too important. It's unlikely we end up in that situation now. So if the Phoenix are going to finish first, they're going to have to do so outright. Can they do that from this situation? Yeah, the Central Coast have 3 remaining games, and I think they're all against teams outside the top 6. The Phoenix do have to play 2 teams from inside the top 6, but they're both home games, and then they have an away game against, I think, Newcastle or like 10th or something in between. The big boost for the Phoenix here is that Central Coast are also playing in the Asian Football Confederation Cup, the AFC Cup, whatever it's called, and they've got this week off to recover. Then they have a game on the weekend, but then in the midweek between that game and their next game, they have to fly to Kazakhstan. So for the places you might end up having to travel, like that's not an easy task. And if they don't get a positive result out of that game, then they're going to have to, generally how the AFC stuff goes is just because the travel is so much, the home field advantage is massive. So you want that first leg at home because then you can just win 4-0 and play reserves in the away game. And even if you lose 2-1, doesn't matter. You throw an aggregate. They've got it the other way around. So they could have a tricky fixture and then they have to take the home fixture more seriously and then, less rest. They've got to play 5 games in the space of time that the Phoenix have to play 3. So that's stuff that can definitely swing back around and cause them to drop points. And maybe they won't care as much about winning the minor premiership as the Phoenix might, because they have another trophy to go for. And because they're defending champs of the A-League, they feel like, well, we're a playoff team anyway, no dramas. So that stuff is still in the Phoenix's favor. In which case, well, not favor, but it's still certainly, like, I think that's up for grabs. That's toss a coin. I think they can go either way. I don't think the Phoenix they've lost control of the race for first, but I don't think they've given the Central Coast Mariners full control or anything like that. It's evened out rather than anything else. So with that in mind, what do we learn from the game? I think we learned more than anything that Alex Roof is a really important player, and when he's not there, you're in trouble, because they just did not have that like combative defensive shield in the midfield there to do the job that Roof has been doing for most of the season. Nico Pennington played there instead and got dribbled past 6 times according to the SofaScore stats. So that's the kind of thing which Roofer doesn't necessarily win all his tackles, but it's very hard to dribble past him, because if he misses the tackle, he'll probably take your leg, right? So Pennington wasn't even doing that, and maybe could have. I think maybe someone like Moel Tai might have done a better job in that role or whatever. But then if you do that, you lose out on some of Pennington's passing range. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's easy to judge in hindsight, but that was definitely a big issue. And it's also like you don't have to figure out who the best deputy for Alex Rufer's position is, because if the Phoenix are playing to their potential, it means Alex Rufer is also playing. Like, you don't really, if he's not there, that's just the thing where you have to adjust your expectations rather than trying to solve that issue. It's just like, well, you're a different team if that's the case. So I don't think that's necessarily something they have to worry about, and it is something to think about if they come up against Central Coast again, which is probably likely because they do seem to be the 2 best teams in the A-League. They come up against them in the playoffs. Well, that's the biggest reason for positivity and thinking the Phoenix can win the next time around, is that Alex Rufer will probably be there and makes a big difference. The other reason for positivity is the hope that if they do finish ahead of them, that might be a home game rather than an away game. But it's, Central Coast is the one team who they might have to play away in the playoffs, because it's the one team that might still finish ahead of them. They definitely can't finish lower than 3rd, and I think they play Melbourne Victory this week, so they could lock up a top 2 spot in that case, which would mean a bye through the first round of the playoffs. I think is how that works. The other thing I'd say we learned from that game is, we'll say 2 things. One is that it had a playoff atmosphere. It felt like the 2 best teams going at it. Didn't necessarily mean, as we know with how knockout football tends to work, especially in the latter stages of those things, it may have felt like a playoff atmosphere, but that didn't mean it felt like a free-flowing open game, because those playoff atmospheres tend not to be free-flowing open games, tend to be quite combative, very physical, very tactical. I think we got all of those things in full array in this game. We also got some moments of brilliance from both teams, and the winning goal was outstanding, like a stoppage time cut inside, curl at bottom corner outside the box. Maybe if Alex Rufa's presence was there, that doesn't happen, because he shot from right about where Rufa would have been trying to engage him. But still, like, you got to tip your hat to an excellent goal. That's the other thing, though. I don't know if I'd say we learned it about the Phoenix in this game. I think we were reminded once again, or maybe we learned that it applies at the highest level as well, which is just how, I don't know, how much confidence this team has, how much sort of never say die. They were on the back foot for a majority of this game, defended very well. We know that that's how they tend to defend, so I don't think we need to freak out about shot tallies or anything like that, because a lot of those shots are harmless, because they're the shots that the Phoenix allow teams to have. But the possession stuff was a little bit like, they obviously would have liked more of the ball. They would have liked less of the ball around their penalty area. But when they needed a goal, they scored one. They scored a brilliant goal with like fantastic passing move up the wing, and then Van Hannem crosses it in. Ben Olds there, he taps it home. There you go. Looked like that was going to secure them a fantastic draw. It didn't happen, but we still saw, we still saw that persevering Wellington Phoenix team that we've seen throughout the season, that just knows exactly what their game is about, that doesn't fear anyone, and finds ways to be clinical when they need them. It didn't, they got unlucky in the end to lose the game. It was probably a game that, I don't know, just doesn't really matter what it could have been. It's what it was, wasn't it? So Central Coast just had a little bit extra of, found a little bit more magic when they needed it, but not in a way where it felt like they were an overwhelmingly better team than the Phoenix. It's just in a way where two good teams duked it out and they landed the winning shot. So it's a fixture I hope we see again, because I think it felt like a game that, I won't say that could have been a grand final, but it feels like these two teams could certainly meet in a grand final. But I'm not too bummed about how it went and about how they played. I think it was, when it's that close, you sort of, sometimes you got to accept that you'll win games you don't necessarily deserve, and you'll lose games you don't necessarily deserve. Central Coast will feel like they definitely deserve to win that game, but so it goes. I think they played like a team that belongs at the top of the table in a very big, important fixture, and I don't necessarily think they would lose that game if they played it again in a rematch, is I guess the important thing to think about. So does it damage their chances of finishing first? Yeah. Does it improve their chances of maybe winning the championship down the line? I think maybe also, yeah.
There was also a good win for the football Ferns, and they are playing tonight. So we'll probably go deeper into the football. Ferns might do some Warriors preview stuff as well for the subscriber podcast on Thursday, as well as anything else that pops up on our radar ahead of the Thursday recording. You can listen to that through Patreon or with a paid Substack subscription. Similar question though, like, what'd you learn from a good football Ferns win that folks might be looking out for tonight when they do play another game against Thailand?
Yeah, I think this is a unusual fixture for the football Ferns, because it was a home game, and they have had quite a few of those recently, but it was around the sort of bubble of the World Cup. They don't get a lot of home games outside of that kind of context. And B, it was against a team that's ranked notably beneath them, and therefore was a team they could feel like, they beat them 5-0 the last time they played them about 7 years ago, I think, with a fairly different team, and like 2 World Cups have gone past in between that. But still, like, the kind of opponent they knew they could go out and dominate and beat. And for all the, I don't know, the franticness about how football Ferns struggle to score goals and win games, is one of the main reasons they struggle for those things. There are other reasons, of course. There are tactical reasons, there are personnel reasons, which is not quite having the players to do some of this stuff. But one of the factors is that they play against a lot of teams that are better than them. And so they're having to be the other team in those, the Thailand in this matchup. So I just wanted to see how they would respond to that, particularly in game one, because I think if you do really well in game one, you set up game two to be able to rotate a little bit. But you kind of can't do that if you have a scrappy, even a scrappy win against Thailand in game one would have been the case. And that what they did instead was they went out there, they carried on what they were doing throughout the Oceania Nations Cup, carried it on sort of personnel wise. I think we saw a team lineup that was pretty similar in terms of what we've been told is the current hierarchy of players, plus obviously a few others that weren't available for that coming back in, Ellie Riley, CJ Bott, etc. But we saw something similar there. We saw tactically same formation as they were playing through a lot of that, and I think we saw the approach was quite similar as well. And they defended better than they did, I thought, in the Oceania Nations Cup. They didn't allow Thailand to have a single shot through the entire match. Like they just, and Elite literally never had a save to make. It's like a flawless clean sheet, you could say. Yeah. Also an completely unthreatened clean sheet. So that was fine. And then they just from there dominated the game, spent most of it in Thailand's half. For a while there, they did get an early goal, Hannah Wilkinson, about 17 minutes in, so that was cool. But then for a while there, it was stuck at 1-0, and you're thinking like, well, they should have been like at least 2, probably 3, maybe even 4 goals up at halftime for how they were playing. And then second half, you're feeling similar things, but then they do get a little bit of a flow on at the end. And Katie Kitchen comes off the bench and scores a couple. Jackie Hand gets another goal. And, 4-0 result is excellent. It's exactly what we need to see. They got there in the end with that kind of ruthless victory. And there were times there where you're looking at a team that's shown really good attacking intent, but not necessarily execution. Like there were touches and passes that just went astray a little bit. I think you sort of have to cop some of that because they're a team trying to figure those things out. And I'd rather see the good intentions and the mistakes in execution than the other way around. Like at least they're trying and making the right decisions, and they'll get better at those things the more they do that, more they play in these combinations and whatever. I think we saw a little bit less Cindy Riley than I thought we would, but we still saw her looking to be, a creative, aggressive player. We saw Jackie Hand having a big influence on this game. I think Katie Kitchen's boost off the bench was pretty impressive. Boost her stocks a little bit. So Macy Fraser getting the starts. So getting some impressive stuff there, and impressive stuff that also leans towards a newer generation of football Ferns, particularly in the attack. And I think that got exacerbated even more during the week with Rhea Percival announcing her international retirement, which I wrote about this in the email, so I don't need to rehash it all. But suffice to say, I wasn't really surprised. It felt like it was probably the right time in her career to just focus on the club stuff and extend that rather than adding in flights to Christchurch a couple times a year. I don't know. But that, chuck that on top of the fact that Betsy Hassett won't be at the Olympics because she's pregnant now. And Olivia Chance is a little bit younger, so I think she'll get back into the football Ferns, but she's also expecting a baby anytime soon. Annalie Longo is no guarantee to make the Olympic squad because of her fitness reasons, and you might just want to lean on the younger players anyway in light of the next World Cup cycle. You've had retirements now to Rhea Percival, to Rosie White, Anna Green, Abby Ursig, of course, in the last couple of years. Like there's Erin Naylor's no longer getting picked for squads. Like there's a core of the team that was there for quite a while. A lot of them Centurions or like 80 plus caps, not really a part of the thing anymore. I think that's a really interesting thing because one thing people often would criticize the Ferns about is picking the same players over and over, which I never thought was entirely fair. But especially when those players are the best players, like what do you want to do? Pick a weaker squad? And you think that's going to improve things? But they never reached a point where there was a reset. Like there was never a specific, okay, from this point on, we're picking a young squad and we've just cut all these, we've cut the older players, we're moving on, we've hit the button, we're tanking or whatever, as an NBA franchise might say. there was nothing like that. It's happened organically and it's happened slowly over time, but it's definitely happened. And I think that's something to take note of with the football Ferns, especially at a time when you're seeing a lot of the young players coming through and actually given a little bit more in the attacking areas than this team was getting before that.
None of that really feels like the case with the White Ferns.
No,
Seems a bit
no.
more stagnant and a bit more just stale as opposed to the free flow and estuary. This is more of a pond, just out in the back of the farm. Depending on your outlook, it might be growing a bit of algae as well in that pond. But the White Ferns did have their regular win in the third ODI, so shout out to them. And as I wrote down humbled for the Wellington Phoenix, my word for the White Ferns was jaded. I am jaded as a White Ferns fan and follower. So when I see the White Ferns win a third ODI and say everything's honkadory, we're on the up and up, I'm like, well, you said that last time. Which was when they lost to Pakistan in that T20 series. And they've done it before, when they've lost 2 games and then they win the third game. So I don't think much has changed since the start of the series. So I came into the series and England were the favourites, so I was like, well, it's going to be pretty hard to beat them for starters, but also it's going to be hard to beat any team in international cricket when you're not selecting your best players, when you're making weird selection moves, when you're not empowering the young players and the young players aren't really stepping up. Shout out to Izzy Gay. She did step up. I mean, with the bat. She scored some runs in the series. However, that came like with Maddie Green not scoring runs. But what does Maddie Green do? She scores runs in the third game. So big up to her. Would have been nice if those runs were there at any stage prior to that in the series. And also, like, Hannah Rowe wasn't so good. I don't think the seam attack was so good throughout the whole ODIs and T20s. So it was like there was a couple players who stepped up and outperformed their maybe ranking or perception. But even then, like Izzy Gaze and Brooke Halliday were batting together about to win the game for the White Ferns, and then there's a run-out. You're like, what's going on? But that's the White Ferns thing. So even though there are a couple of good spots, I think ultimately overall, this brings an end to the summer in which the White Ferns lost 3 out of 4 series in New Zealand. So the only series they won was an ODI series against Pakistan. And again, I talked about this last week. These issues have now stretched across 2 different coaches. And my takeaway from this summer of White Ferns cricket is that there is no home advantage for the White Ferns. And this stretches back across 2 coaches. So if we go back to the start of 2020, the White Ferns are 12 and 15 in ODIs. So they have a losing record for ODIs in New Zealand with 2 different coaches. If we go into T20s, there are 10 and 11. So a bit better, but still a losing record. So there's no home advantage here. And this issue has gone across 2 different coaches and a pretty big pool of players if we're going back to the start of 2020. There is a T20 World Cup coming on later on this year. That's the next big major event. But coming out of this summer, it's like, well, the summer started with a T20 series loss to Pakistan, and it ends with a thoroughly comprehensive 2 series defeats against England. So that's just where the White Ferns are at right now. Unlucky to them. We talked about it before. I'm actually quite happy to shuffle things along and not get bogged down in the White Ferns woes. Just quickly, so Kiwi County Tour was up in action. As I said earlier in the podcast, Nathan Smith did some things, took 3 wickets. He is playing in the same team as Jason Holder, so that's a nice little all-rounder combo that I just find quirky and interesting as a cricket fan. Not quite as interesting, though, as a Lancashire, where Tom Bruce is playing. It was pissing down with rain, apparently, in England. And what do you know? Going back to the mindfulness, what did we see in Sydney this weekend? Just pissing down.
That Dragons Knights game was
Yeah, there you go.
like torrential from minute 1 to 80 and beyond. It was incredible. There was a dude in the crowd with a snorkel.
So that was happening in Australia. Meanwhile, most of the county championship games, of which there were at least 10, were impacted by rain in some way, shape, or form. So Lancashire...
Meanwhile, my tank at home is almost empty.
There you go. Maybe you need a bit of rain. Send it over.
Yeah, share the love. Share the moisture.
Maybe just to Whangarei and not to Auckland, though, because it's pretty nice when it's sunny.
I'm happy with that trade, yeah.
So Lancashire only batted once. Surrey batted 8.3 overs. But what happened is you got Tom Bruce. He's playing in the same team as Will Williams. So that's pretty cool. Will Williams, former Canterbury bowler, who has a first-class bowling average after 63 games of 21.8, which is really impressive, although it's more suited to county championship cricket, one would feel, because he hasn't played for the Black Caps with an exceptional first-class bowling average. So they're there, and Will Williams he's always in the Lancashire team. Him and Matt Quinn have become, English-based players, so shout out to them. Tom Bruce is batting in the middle order. He batted 5, he scored 17 runs, but this is also the same team that Nathan Lyon is playing for. And it's the same team that Tom Hartley is playing for. Tom Hartley is one of the English spinners who made his debut in India. So you got Nathan Lyon playing with Tom Hartley, Aussie spinner, English spinner playing for the same Lancashire team, but Tom Bruce is just amongst it. Tom Bruce is just kicking it with Nathan Lyon. So that's pretty cool. Shout out to them. There was no play for Blair Tickner. I think he's playing with Derbyshire. They were rained off. And Will Young hasn't started his stint in county championship cricket. You got any cricketing thoughts?
Not particularly, but it is always... I do enjoy this period of the calendar where, like, it's not as cool as when Black Caps, White Ferns are playing over and over and you're getting the international stuff, but it is fun to sort of... It's almost like a Flying Kiwis football kind of realm where, like, the dudes are in the IPL and the county stuff is starting, and you get to see these players in different contexts. Like the New Zealand season's finished, the domestic New Zealand season's finished, and you get to see Tom Bruce scoring some runs and county cricket on top and translating that. And I mean, he hasn't done that yet, but I'm sure he will, because he scores runs wherever he goes. And yeah, good fun. I do enjoy the bit of the old Kiwi County tour.
Just for context, Tom Bruce, he has a first-class batting average of 49.2.
So he's going to want to bring that up to 50.
Yeah, he's obviously slumping if he's not at 50.
Yeah.
He didn't play a whole lot of cricket this summer. He did have a stint in the Bangladesh league, and I saw that Jimmy Neesham was absolutely destructive in that league when I was going through the Black Caps T20 stats. Tom Bruce went all right as well, so that's pretty cool. He's pretty good at cricket. Nathan Smith's got a first-class batting average of 26.2 and a bowling average of 26.6. So he averages 26 with bat and ball in first-class cricket, which as an all-round combination... The only way you can get better than that is averaging over 30 with the bat, under 30 with the ball. But 26 with both is reasonably impressive. I'm fascinated by Nathan Smith in county championship cricket because he was a dominant figure in Plunket Shield this summer. Wellington won the championship with Nathan Smith as a dominant figure. Now he goes to county championship cricket, and he might be one of their best players. Like, obviously, I don't know a whole lot about these lads, but there's a chance for him to kick on, and this will inform us about New Zealand cricket, right? Like, if our good Plunket Shield players are going over to England, which has happened in the past, as I talked about earlier, like blokes have gone over and performed really well, tells you about the state. And Nathan Smith is the latest experiment in that. I think his whole skill set is going to be successful in county championship cricket. He like the run out he had, just scampering around from third man, whipping a throw in over the top of the stumps. Like, that's what he does as well. He's an exceptional fielder, and he will score. I reckon he'll put up a 50-plus score at some point, batting 9, which is probably a bit low for him. Like, he's probably batting 6 or 7, probably 7 or 8-ish for Wellington. 6 would be too high, but 7 or 8 for Wellington. Now he's batting 9, so watch out for Nathan Smith in county championship cricket. I believe I did jump the gun when we were doing the intro, and I chucked the Auckland and Tuatara into the undefeated teams. But they're not.
Game.
They are 2-1, so they've played 3 games. Funnily enough, 2 of the 4 teams who have played 3 games, they've lost every game. So that's Nelson Giants and Southland Sharks. But our undefeated teams to start the NBL season: Wellington Saints, Otago Nuggets, Franklin Bulls. Start with the Wellington Saints. I see Hiram Harris doing pretty well. I see Isaiah Liafa doing pretty well. What's leading the Wellington Saints to... They are ranked top of the table thanks to their for and against. To a top of the table. They are the top of the table team in New Zealand sport right now.
Yeah, it's not the Wellington Phoenix anymore. It's the Wellington Saints. They've just I don't know. They just got a good team, you know. You get a bit of Hiram Harris in there, and you get a bit of Isaiah Liafa in there, who, by the way, sounds like he's not returning to the Breakers. It sounds like Isaiah Liafa's going to decline his option and sign with the Sydney Kings instead, which is pretty interesting. And the Breakers apparently going to replace him with an Aussie. So make of that of what you will. They did get the big signing with Parker Jackson Cartwright, but
the Sydney Kings are like a glamour historic team in the NBL. For anyone who doesn't know, a lot of championships. Obviously, the big Donnies in Sydney as well. So Liafa moving to Sydney Kings is a huge move for Kiwi basketball, taking out the whole Breakers angle. I think the last dude to play for the Sydney Kings was Tommy Vodanovic when he might have won a championship with the Sydney Kings.
He did. There has been one since, but I don't blame you for overlooking the 7 minutes that Sam Timmins played for them this season. So that's understandable, especially because they didn't even go very far. Sydney Kings had a pretty bad season.
Well, Sam Timmins, he might be playing for the Sydney Kings next season?
I doubt it. He was the last guy they signed, and he played about 7 minutes. So I'd be surprised if they brought him back, given although you never know, though, because it is a bit of a clean slate because they've sacked their coach. They got a new coach. Looks like they're rebuilding their team. Likely to bring back Xavier Cooks, I think, according to some of the rumors anyway. So I don't know. Xavier Cooks actually played for Wellington Saints to spin that around a couple of years ago. I don't know if Isaiah Liafa was on the team with them at that point because he's played for a couple different NBL teams. I don't know. I'd have to check, but I do like the idea of Liafa and Cooks on the same team in an Aussie NBL side. I think that's a combination that's going to get. Well, Xavier Cooks is good regardless, but that's going to get more out of Isaiah Liafa, which is cool.
But Sam Timmins is playing a key role for the Otago Nuggets, who are 2-0. So if you're... is he in this?
No, he moved. He's playing a key role for the Franklin Bulls, who are 2-0.
So if Sam Timmins is doing big things in the New Zealand NBL, given what we know about the state of New Zealand basketball and how it's on the rise, so you're seeing more and more Kiwis in the NBL, more and more Kiwi women in the women's NBL. If NBL teams are watching this NBL and Sam Timmins is again playing a nice role for one of the best teams, surely his stocks in the Aussie NBL need to go up. And if he was with the Sydney Kings, you might think, given their pursuit of Leafa, they want a bit of Aotearoa flavour. Well, get a big man, get old Sam Timmins. You know what he's about. But let's get back into New Zealand NBL. So Leafa's playing for Wellington. Any sneaky young Kiwis on that Wellington roster that you're watching out for?
Well, I'd have to whip up their thing, but I do think that is a team that's dominated by a few of the more senior, like obviously Hiram Harris is having a fantastic start. Where is he on the fourth top scorer? He's averaging 25 points through his 2 games. I think I didn't watch all of it. I watched some of their most recent game. The weird thing about the Saints is they week 1 beat the Tuatara scoring 110 points, won by 30. Week 2, they only scored 84 points, but still won by 9 against Nelson Giants. So actually 2 good defensive performances, actually, but just one in which they scored a lot of points and one in which they didn't score a lot of points but didn't have to. They missed a lot of 3-pointers from what I saw. So some of the shooting percentage is not amazing, but you still got like Leafa 18 points, Harris 22 with 10 rebounds, 5 assists. Smith Milner's there. So there's the 3 guys who are all at this stage pretty experienced playing not just Australian NBL but also Tall Blacks. You got some role players around them, but I wouldn't say it's
But is there any?
I don't know that there's a standout there that I'd highlight and say this dude's going to play Tall Blacks someday.
Well, you don't need to say that. Just someone for me to watch out for. Like, oh, this guy's coming off the bench. What's he doing?
Where are we? I just want to get the first name right because on Tribe they only show the initial. So Rangimarie Dougal-Mita was starting that most recent game. So I suspect that might have been a little bit of a placeholder in terms of like an import will come in or something like that. I'm not sure. Didn't seem to have a deep bench though, which does again suggest that there's troops still yet to arrive. But that's probably why Hiram Harris seems to have played all 40 minutes. Like I say, I didn't watch all of it from start to finish to confirm that, but I watched enough of it to say that Hiram Harris was out there doing heaps of stuff, and he seems to have played all 40 minutes. So they might be prepping for some further reinforcements, in which case they've looked pretty good without them. So that's a Wellington Saints team that's back where they're used to being, which is competing for championships. So by the looks of it, I think 2 weeks has already confirmed that.
Otago Nuggets are another 2-0 team. We know about their connection with Perth Wildcats. Do they have any standout Kiwis who are affiliated with Perth Wildcats? What else is doing with the Otago Nuggets?
Yeah, big Wildcats affiliation, which improved this week because Ty Webster, after skipping out the first game, he was able to make his season debut in the second game. Cheeky 20 points, 6 assists, 31 minutes, good solid Ty Webster stuff, just leading the team. They do also have Jack Andrew, who's been he missed a few shots in the most recent game, but he had a really good first game. He's a DP for Perth Wildcats, young Kiwi lad. He had 11 rebounds still in this game, 3 assists as well as a big man. So there's some good stuff there. Haven't seen Dante Russo-Nance, who's probably the one to get most excited about because he is an extremely good guard prospect who signed a 3-year deal with Perth Wildcats, where the first year was as a DP. I think the second year he goes on to the full roster, though, which would be next year. I don't think usually it's when they do those 3-year DP things, it's 2 years as a DP and then the third year is like a team option. Do we want to sign this guy to the full roster? Do we not want to sign this guy to the full roster? Let's see. That is where I think Alex McNaught is right now. So whether or not the Breakers bring him back, we'll find out in the coming weeks. I think free agency starts in about a week's time. It's also where Anzac Rossetto was for Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, and they declined his option to bring him back, which maybe he's the big man that the Breakers need. Who knows? Maybe he's the next dude. I do think there's a hell of a NBL player in there if someone sort of gives him that opportunity. He's not playing NBL, New Zealand NBL this year, though. He's staying in Australia to play NBL 1, which suggests a dude who is trying to, he is focused on getting that next Aussie contract. So yeah, the Wildcats, the the Otago Wildcats, the Perth Nuggets, they've got those three Kiwi guys from Perth. They've also got Ben Henshall, who's one of their younger Australian fellas who scored 28 points in their most recent win, and I think got 21 in week one, something like that, 2021 around that range. So the Nuggets element is very strong for that team, and also those guys happen to be really good players and are leading them to victories early on in the season.
Good gold mining connection between the Otago Nuggets and Perth as well. Big Aussie gold hunter. I do love a bit of Aussie gold hunter on Discovery Channel, so know a bit about Kalgoorlie and the surrounding areas. So Otago Nuggets, Perth Nuggets, it goes well. Franklin Bulls have our man Timmins no longer with the Otago Nuggets. Shout out, he's with the Franklin Bulls. What are you making of the Franklin Bulls this season? Aside from Sam Timmins, is he the best local big man? Like Rob Lowe might have something to say about it. Hiram Harris is
defending MVP. Rob Lowe, yeah, would have something to say about it. Tyrell Harrison as well is not going to be there for that long. He's only signed like for the first 4 weeks, but he's with Manawatu, and I think while he's playing, he's the best like traditional big man in certain terms of just like scoring at the rim and getting massive quantities of rebounds. And there's the same as last season. There's no shortage of depth there for good Kiwi big men, and Sam Timmins is one of them. Sam Timmins so far, week one, where are we? 12 points, 17 rebounds. Week two, he had somewhere in here 23 points and 11 rebounds. 23 points on 10 of 12 shooting as well. So he and 3 assists. He was getting to the line. He was rebounding. He's doing. He's doing good dominant things for a strong team who also have, I think it's Luther Muhammad. Luther Muhammad, they're one of their imports who is the highest scoring player in the league through the first 2 games. He is averaging 32.5 points. He's scored, I think it's 34 and 31 points in this season. So he's gone over 30 both times. That helps a lot. And it also helps even more so when you getting rebounds and doing that stuff as well. The Bulls last year were a bit of a breakers offshoot team with a few of those guys sort of like fringe breakers. There's less so this year, like Dan Fotu's playing elsewhere, and you do still have Brother Brantley, Jarrell or Jamal. I'm confused now. The weaker one, who was the backup guy for the Breakers last year. He's actually come back to play again. Isaac Davidson, Ethan Rusbatch played for the Breakers for a little bit, not less recently, but Timmins as well. Like there's a few of those guys who were connected to the Breakers, but they're not like current Breakers sort of affiliates. And I don't think they're coached by Dan Sokolowski anymore. I'm not sure who coaches them. I haven't got the thing open, but so they're not a little bit of a different look for the Franklin Bulls, but they apparently are even better. So no dramas.
Jarrell Brantley, obviously former Breakers superstar. He left to go to Utah. And
he had the 10-day contract, and then
he's no longer with Utah. He's in Japan. So shout out to him. Shout out to the world of basketball.
Going up against Isaac Fotu.
The world of football, like scouting and stuff like that, is so expansive. I've got no idea how the system and the process works. Basketball isn't much different. Like these dudes just go to every single country they can to play basketball. Why wouldn't you come to Aotearoa to play in the NBL? Like pretty chill vibes, playing some nice arenas. Pukekohe's got a good arena. I wouldn't necessarily call it like a nice arena that's going to attract international superstars, but just good vibes in the New Zealand NBL. And when you compare, like you could be playing, a little bit more money, but you're playing in the back blocks of Serbia or somewhere that is like real heated. It's like fans are going crazy. You can just chill out in New Zealand, play some b-ball, decent level, roll around. So maybe
it's like Parker Jackson Cartwright re-signing with the Breakers and saying the first thing he wants to do is walk up and down K Road and go to the second-hand stores. Like fair enough. Like, and also checking out some of the great restaurants that we've got there in Auckland City, which there are some good ones, but like I don't know where he's from originally, but obviously not like New York or LA or one of the big places.
You're just real excited to go to Aotearoa and hang out on K Road.
Buy some army surplus.
Shout out. Big ups. That is the Niche Cast for this week. Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well across Aotearoa and enjoying all the sports section action. Let us know your thoughts on the Warriors, the Phoenix. Whatever else you want to chat about, hit us up in the comments. Otherwise, we'll be recording our subscriber podcast on Thursday for Patreon and Substack folks. And of course, we've got our free newsletter coming out on Friday. Check in with our website, theniche-case.com, for the in-depth yarns coming up over the next few days. Personally, I have Warriors versus Sea Eagles preview coming up and the Kiwi County Tour wrap. I imagine the Flying Kiwis will be live on the website at some point. Anything else in the works?
Flying Kiwis, Phoenix men and women, maybe a second Phoenix women thing as well, focusing specifically on the import strategies. Yeah, I got an annoying, and football ferns as well. I got an annoying amount of stuff to be writing / have written.
Beauty. Big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Chur.